Sharing our stories makes us stronger and brings us closer together. So, here's to the strong women. May we know them, the podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Lucas. I'm a coach, a published author, and a speaker, but more so I like to create spaces for the messy parts of our stories to be celebrated and supported, because we are stronger together. Be ready to take notes. My guest Frances and I are discussing mindset shifts around feeling emotions, losing loved ones, taking time for yourself, and ice cream. Hello and welcome to the May We Know Them podcast. I'm your host, Meghan Lucas. You're catching us today. We're recording this on March 8th, which is International Women's Day. So I'm so excited to be here this morning with Frances Shefter. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before she shares her story today, but this is an extra special recording of the podcast. So be with all that gooey, lovely energy this morning. If this is your first time here, we do things a little differently here where I give you homework. Just kidding. What I ask for you to do is take out a pen, piece of paper, and as we're having a conversation this morning, write down anything that jumps out at you, that resonates with you, that maybe challenges you. Trust that wherever you're at listening to this, you were meant to hear something in Frances's story today. And whether it hits you today or you stumble upon this chicken scratch note that you wrote 2 weeks from now, again, just trust that you were meant to hear it. So Frances is somebody I've known for a few years now, and she is such a, like, this integration of just fierce badass. Like, you'll understand when you hear about what she does. Just such a powerful energy. And at the same time, so much compassion, so much grace. Like, she just really melds together all of it. And in her story today, and as you get to learn about her and be with her energy, you're going to feel all of it. So get cozy, settle in wherever you're at, to just be with the power of her and the presence of her and just so much heart. Francie, thanks for being here this morning with us.
Thank you, Meghan. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to get my story out there.
Yeah. So Frances's story today, we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about a trying time in her life and how, she persevered through that and also like held space to actually be with the emotions of it too, which is a lot of times, I think one of the things I aim for with this podcast is to dismiss the idea that we have to put on a brave face to handle everything, because we're already spending lots of energy. So then to do that on top of it just spends more energy that we don't have in reserves anymore. Like, so with that, Frances, before we dive in to the heart of your story today, I want you to tell us a little bit about what you do, because I know the pinnacle of this, what we're going to be discussing, happened when your business was booming. So tell us a little bit about your business first, and then we'll dive into the timeline here.
Got it, no problem. Okay, so I am the owner, CEO of Shefter Law PA, where we help families have a stress-free IEP experience. So we are a special education firm where we advocate for families to make sure that children have the right processes, the right supplements and placements and services in the school system, whether that be through an IEP, a 504 plan, a health plan, whatever that is. So we are here to help families get their children the services they need in school. We do legal services in Florida, DC, and Maryland, and advocacy services internationally, because we have had 2 clients in Germany.
Wow, awesome. That's so awesome. So if that's the only thing you take from today, anyone listening, like, there is somebody out there who can help you make sense of all those forms and resources and understand what your child should be getting, and are they getting it, and is there more out there for you? And I mean, the biggest thing that Frances shares with this is that, like, you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. It can be overwhelming. So I hope you get, like, how important the services that she provides. And now now it's there. Like, we'll link her YouTube channel. Like, she gives so much value. So that being said, Frances, I know you were at a time in your life where your
what you're doing in the world, this advocacy, this helping people was booming, is booming. And then you had something really sad happen. You want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so, and of course I'm gonna get emotional because, we're women and that's what we do. So as my firm was growing, in 2019 is when I was like, okay, this is it. This is gonna be my year. It was December of 2019, 2020 is gonna be it. It's gonna be my year. I
Hmm.
mean, I got together with a group of friends and we've like bosses with accountability and started all this stuff. And then, as everybody knows, COVID hit.
Yeah.
But I didn't let it totally stop me. I kept going. And I said, I'm gonna still make it the best I can and do what I can. And in August, my father passed away of 2020. And it was not expected. It was, we had a little bit of an idea of something going on, but it wasn't like we were told like, okay, it's this stage, he died of cancer and like it's this stage and
Yeah.
there's nothing else that's going to happen. There's nothing else that can be done. It was kind of the very beginnings of it. And so we thought we had years and it actually wound up only being a month. And that was hard in itself. But the other thing is my dad was my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest thing because as things grew, as in 2020 kept going in 2021, every time that I had something like, yes, I just won a case, or yes, this just happened, I wanted to pick up the phone and call dad because that's what I did. And I would go to pick up the phone and then it was like I couldn't and I would start crying. And so it was kind of like this emotional wreck of a roller coaster of I want to keep going in these good things, but then it makes me sad because I don't have my father to share it with.
Yeah. 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 Oh my goodness. So many things to process there, like the unexpected nature of it, the what I hear in that I think a lot of people face whenever they lose a loved one is the muscle memory of picking up the phone. I definitely experienced that with my grandmother for sometimes I still do, not as much now, and it's almost 10 years, but when there are certain things like I've learned to just pick up the phone. I'm using air quotes for those who are listening in a different way. But yeah, that's an adjustment. That's such an adjustment, and not even for just the celebrations, but like for anybody who's listening, who's a business owner, it's not all butterflies and rainbows all the time. Like there are some hard moments too, where you just want that comfort on the other end to console you, to hike you back up, to be like, come on, girl, you got this. And yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the other thing, my dad was the biggest cheerleader, but he was also an entrepreneur. He owned his own company. And so um, for a long time, he'd be like, well, what's the market? How much the market do you have? What is this? And I'm like, I don't know. How do you not know your numbers? And how do you not know, like it was like that father figure
yeah.
of like, you can't run a business like that. You have to do this, that, and the other. And in December of 2020, I hired a business coach. And
Mhm.
so I started learning my numbers, understanding the market, understanding my client avatar, and all that stuff that my father had been saying for years of like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? And I'm
Mhm.
like, look, Dad, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And he's not there to see like the business side of it as well, of like, ugh, I have to hire, I have to fire, I have to do this. And like, who do I have as a business? Thankfully, I have my coaches and other,
Yeah.
but it's still not dad, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 So with that, like being with the loss of that, being with the hey, I still have my business to run, like because you still
Right.
have to show up for it. Talk to me a little bit about like what that process was like, what maybe what obstacles you ran into, what you learned, what you shifted. Like talk to me about that process, how you worked through that grief.
So, um, I mean, the biggest turning point for me is when I was having one of my emotional days, talking to my business coach, Deb, with Law Firm Mentor. I might as well put her out there. Deb
Mhm.
is the business coach, Allison's the owner, but I was having a conversation with Deb about it and saying, like, this is hard, like to celebrate. And Deb had a similar experience, and she said, what she said to me that just really resonated was your father had the torch and he's now passed it on to you, and it's for you to keep going with it.
Mm.
And it was just like, okay, like that to me, that was like, okay, I'm carrying the torch, continuing his legacy. And, legally, my last name is Levita now because I'm married with kids. And I took my husband's name, but I still had practice under Shefter to honor my father and my grandfather.
Yeah.
So like that I'm carrying the torch for him and carrying the family name into this entrepreneur lifestyle or whatever you want to call it.
And what did that shift for you, taking on that mentality of it, that like, oh, he's actually a part of this with me, versus focusing on he's like the loss, the gap, he's not here.
Right. I mean, it was my mom made a comment one time when we were talking about it, about how she still talks to him. And so that's what I do. Like when things happen, I'll be like, look, Dad, do you see that? Like, do you see what I just did? So I still talk to him, like, even though he's not
Yeah.
there, like it's okay. And it's remembering that, his journey ended, and unfortunately earlier than we would have liked.
Mm-hmm.
But my journey is continuing, and I know he's up there smiling and proud and looking down and going, you got this, girl. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel that energy from him.
Yeah, 100%. I know the feeling. I don't know if you experience anything like this, but my grandmother likes to show up in real cheeky ways. Like,
Yeah.
it's not always which is comforting. Like, it's not always the warmth and the love, but sometimes it feels like a little smack on the back of the head, like,
Yep.
come on, you know better.
Right. And I do it, and I've caught myself saying, I know, Dad, I know, you told me
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
like it's
Where you are now in this, because it's been a few years, and I don't want to dismiss the process of grieving and maybe transitioning into this, like, yeah, I can just talk to him now. Maybe it doesn't make you cry as much, but like, if you could go back from today and tell Frances in August 2020 some advice or anything here, like, is there any comfort you would give her? I know that's an on the
That's
spot
so
question, so
hard. No, and it's
yeah.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a hard one because I mean, circumstances for me, um, 10 days after my father passed away, my father-in-law passed away. So like I didn't have
Oh,
that time to grieve. Being
yeah.
COVID, we didn't have the full funeral. We didn't have the sitting Shiva. We couldn't have that comfort that, is there for a reason.
Yeah.
And I also had to focus on my children because Hannah was 6 and understood what death
Mm,
was. And so that
mhm,
was a challenge.
mhm.
But honestly, just breathe and just take one day at a time. One of the things is feel the emotions. Don't try to suppress them.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest thing because for me, feeling the emotions, I don't want to feel the emotions. I'm gonna go get a pint of ice cream instead. Thankfully I didn't start doing that because I'd probably be well over 500 pounds, but it's feel the emotions, and it's okay to have the emotions and let them, they're there, and acknowledge them, let them be
Mhm.
there, and then suck it up and keep going,
Yeah. Yeah. Step by step, one breath at a
Yeah.
time. I love that. Yeah. I think a lot of times we want to have everything figured out.
Yeah.
Um,
And you don't.
and maybe sometimes so that we don't get caught off guard and have to feel those emotions, you know?
Right.
Um, and that's a lot more stress,
Yeah.
and life doesn't work that way. We all know life doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah, there's a saying that actually a rabbi's wife said to me told me one time, is that we plan and God laughs.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which is so true. Like,
Yeah.
we can plan as much as we want, but and whether it's God or the universe or whatever it is, there's something else out there that's helping drive where you're supposed to be. Like you said at the
Yeah.
beginning, you're supposed to hear what you're supposed to hear, and it's supposed to resonate with you when it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Just the same thing, like you read a book over and over again, you're going to get something different every time
Yeah.
because of where you are in life.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I like to say we aren't privy to the plan.
Right.
And the more I can get grounded in that, the more I trust everything that's happening. I'm meant to
Yeah.
learn something from it. It's meant to break up some belief of mine or pattern, or open up a door for me that maybe didn't exist. So then it's literally feels like something's breaking, like we're
Right.
carving a new path. and just trusting that it's all meant to be. And yeah, feeling the emotion of it. It doesn't dismiss that, we're going through something.
Right.
So to actually honor the emotion of it, there's the grieving of losing people we love, and also sometimes there's the grieving of losing maybe a belief we held on to or an identity that we clung to,
Right.
and really honoring that process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So where you're at now in this, is there any advice you would give to anybody who's, whether it's they've lost someone, whether it's, maybe that person was integral in like how they're showing up in their life, connected to their purpose or their career or something, anything you would share?
I mean, what's coming to mind is that whoever it is, whatever, the person, the feeling, the relationship, the whatever it is still a part of your life. You just need to tweak how. So while my father wasn't physically there to answer, wasn't physically there, for me to call him and talk to him, he's still there. I still feel his presence. I still get the messages like, okay, I get it, Dad, like, and that's, it is that mind shift of, I still have his support and love.
Mhm.
It's just in a different way.
Mhm.
And then honoring them. What keeps coming up, and I have to share, is that it's Girl Scout cookie season time, and I'm Girl Scout mom. And my daughter, she's so funny. My older daughter, Hannah, when she's selling cookies, she does not take no for an answer. People are like, oh, I'm on a diet. And she's like, oh, it's okay. We take donations. I don't have any cash. We take credit cards. And she's also learned when people say how much, she'll say, oh, it's $5 for a box or 4 for 20. People hear the 4 for 20 and think it's a deal and almost always do that. And I keep going, see, Dad, she's got the gene, because
Funny. That
Dad
is,
was a retailer. He owned retail stores and was always upselling. And how do you not trick the customer, but like, how do you get the customer to buy and how do you sell
yeah,
more?
yeah,
And so like she's got it naturally, because I didn't tell her to do that. She just kind of learned it. And it's so funny. Because it's just like seeing it now, the next generation, and where is she going to go and how is she going to take
yeah,
that what's in her and keep moving on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna make this a projection assumption. I'm going to assume, and maybe this isn't true, but if we don't allow ourselves space to feel those emotions, like if you wouldn't have allowed yourself the space to actually be with all the feelings of this, you might have missed that, like
Yeah.
seeing this, seeing your father represented in your daughter.
Right.
When we really focus all of our energy on keeping a cap on things, we actually don't have the capacity to be fully present. And
Exactly.
so, thanks for feeling it. So you could receive that and like be with the celebration of
Yeah.
that. Like, he's here.
Yeah,
Look.
right. And it's also like the suppressing the emotions. It's just, I think that's when people get angry, you know, because they're just, I know when I'm like upset and I can't express it and I can't feel the emotion, we have to keep it together. If I do it for too long, it gets, okay, then's when I need to go out and have a drink or, whatever it is. Um, and just because it's what I do with special ed, a lot of it, it's like masking. And
Yeah.
so what we talk about in the special ed world with IEPs and stuff is that our kids, especially the kids with autism that have to mask all day long. And then that's why when they come home, they fall apart. And so
Mhm.
like taking it as adults, like when we have to suppress those emotions, because obviously we can't burst out crying in the middle of court or in the middle of teaching or in the middle of
Yeah.
whatever, we have to suppress to an extent. But when we get home, it's time to let those emotions out and acknowledge it.
Mhm.
Because if you suppress for too long, and you don't have that outlet to talk to somebody to let it out, then when it finally, the volcano blows, it's not going to be pretty.
No, and it could be with something so trivial, like, the
Yeah.
grocery store's out of your favorite mustard or something like,
Right.
and then suddenly meltdown. So,
Exactly.
don't end up on the news, people. And,
Right.
set aside some time to cry or be angry. punch a
Yeah.
pillow, or like go, they have like places you can go smash cars these
I know,
days.
I
Like,
want to do that. The
I
smash
know.
room, the rage room.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Maybe there's some value there. Thank you for that, because it really um highlights, I think what you're pointing to is I think we've all been trained in that, like
Yeah,
to suppress, to not make a scene, to, often like for other people's comfort,
exactly.
because a lot of people aren't comfortable with people
Yeah.
crying or being emotional. Um, and so it's like this connotation that something's bad or wrong. And so thanks for having this conversation today to highlight the benefits of it, and perhaps to just, yeah, have a mindset shift around that. I think that's important, because everybody's going through something,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
maybe it doesn't have to be as tragic or significant as the loss of a loved one, but I could almost guarantee that many of us are still processing something like pandemic related,
Oh yeah.
a shift, a loss, when are we going back to normal, like that doesn't
Right.
exist
What
anymore,
is normal?
yeah.
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 Well, you mentioned your business coach, so we'll definitely drop like her contact information or a website or something in the show notes for anybody who's interested. Is there anybody, um, whether it's anybody else, since we're all about celebrating strong women here and
Yeah.
making sure we know them, even if it's another podcast or a book you listen to or a song you just played on repeat that really helped you, any other resources you would want to share?
Um, I mean, the fight song always, that'll never
Mm.
change, like this is my
Mhm.
fight song, like I'm gonna keep going. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like who has time to read. I'm running a law office, being a lawyer and a mom of two kids and a cookie mom and cheerleader,
Yeah.
and it just for me is, and it's interesting because I just did a a YouTube video on this, and that's what my posts are this week, is to build your community and find your community
Mm. Yeah.
and whatever that might be. And that's been the biggest thing for me, find
Mhm.
whether it's your Facebook community or Instagram people to follow, but like find what works for you and who your people are, like find your
Mhm.
tribe and
Mhm.
build your community,
Mhm.
because we said at the beginning, you can't do it all alone
Yeah.
in anything in life.
Yeah.
You can't. And if you try to, it's just, what I always think of is if you're going to try to do everything on your own and put all that pressure on you, you are going to be miserable. If not now, later. And it's going to impact your health and it's going to impact everything else.
Yeah. The
So it's
ripple
go
effect.
out, right,
Mhm.
exactly. Like go out, find your community, find your tribe, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Take care of you. And then I do want to share, because we had a call one time, and the take care of you is to also, like, this so resonated with me and changed so much recently, of your protecting your time is also taking care of you, and who you spend your time with, and what you spend your time doing. It's like, take that step back, and not that you have to get something from everybody, it's not that kind of thing with your time, but what is, like, we have limited time. Is
Yeah.
this time that I'm spending truly bringing me joy,
Mhm.
or something else, or what? And like, protect that time. And it opened my eyes to, like, wow,
Yeah.
yeah, like going to happy hour for this or that or the other, versus being home with my kids. My kids are
Mhm.
6 and 9. They're
Mhm.
not, there's going to be a year where they'll be like, yeah, yeah, I don't want to see you, mom, go
Yeah.
away,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
enjoy that time. So like,
Yeah.
protecting your time is also taking care of yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Anyone listening, just because you're free doesn't mean you're available. Okay. So, just because there's a spot on your calendar doesn't mean you need to fill it. And if you do, block it off with me time
Yeah.
or something. And maybe some of you got a little triggered hearing that, like in terms of, really protecting your time. Um, there's nothing wrong with looking at like what's in it for you. And I think a lot of like we may have to let go of some thoughts of that's selfish to do that. But if you never, so you're not, if you never spend the time looking on your side of the street, what you need for you, or it's really unbalanced. Like if you're giving yourself 10% and everybody else gets 90%, it's just not sustainable. And if you never pour back into yourself, you're actually going to be at risk of blowing up on the mustard, like, or your people,
Right.
if you actually don't have that energy. So by taking the time for you, it actually benefits everyone in your wake. So in case you needed to just break up your ideas of that's selfish, just,
Not
sit with that.
selfish.
Yeah.
It's self-care.
It's, yeah. Yeah.
That, it's not like and that's the problem with our society today, is that everybody's like, oh, you're worried about you. You're only worried about you. That's selfish. And it's like, no, I'm taking care of me so that I can take care of everybody else and do for everybody else.
Yeah. It could
But
actually be
again,
seen as selfless in a way.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
Because if my cup is empty, I have nothing to give to anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think us, just highlighting women today, especially on International Women's Day, I think we are well versed in that. We're very capable of doing that. I mean, one of the biggest things I've learned over the past, couple years here being a mom is like that idea that you can't pour from an empty cup. Moms do it all the time.
oh yeah, no choice.
All the time. You can't. We find it somewhere, but at
Yeah,
a cost. Like
yeah.
it's not sustainable. We'll do it because there are babies. Um, but yeah, tap into your village, create that village. And, maybe have some proactive conversations saying, hey, if you don't hear from me in like 2 weeks, just check in,
Yeah.
or just like create some structures there to invite people into your space, or even maybe you're making way to go into their space when things are not all butterflies and rainbows, which we know is going to happen. And that's when we need community the most. So it's so easy to want to hide and,
Yeah.
on dark days. And
Yeah, sit, eat my ice cream, lick my wounds,
yeah,
watch
yeah,
my Lifetime movies and cry,
yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
is. And that's not healthy for
Hmm.
me or anybody.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or invite somebody in to do that with you.
Well, yeah, that
Maybe they
too.
need
Exactly.
like,
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure we could all think of something we need to mourn over, cry about, like
Right.
within
Exactly.
community. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, also like, it's funny. I was thinking about something at a personal growth seminar back in the 90s that I did, and somebody had borrowed something. It was a sweatshirt that was kind of like my comfort sweatshirt. And I
Mhm.
kind of freaked out when I saw her in it.
Mhm.
And then it became this whole big thing. Then I kind of said, that's not what I need for comfort. Like that, like, I don't know, it just kind of shifted, and I wound up burning the sweatshirt in a little ceremony of saying goodbye, of like that I don't need that to get through.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like that's the other thing. It's like if you're mourning a relationship, or if you're, obviously not, somebody passing away or something, but a relationship, or that something didn't go the way you want, or a diagnosis for your child or something. It's like, it's okay to mourn and grieve that it's
Mhm.
not what you thought it was going to be and what you wanted,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
do that, and allow yourself the time to do that, and then pick it up and keep rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And that, yeah. And check in. Like maybe you don't need the
Yeah.
crutch that you think you do,
Right.
which
Right.
is just another way of masking, of not being.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And honestly, like I want to eat ice cream because I love ice cream, not because I'm trying not to feel something. So like I
Exactly.
think the ice cream, in honor of the ice cream, out of respect, it
Yes.
would probably taste better.
Right, exactly. And you would enjoy it because
Yeah.
because I know when I'm emotional eating, I don't even taste it half the time or enjoy it. Whereas like when I'm gonna have a bowl of ice cream that I'm gonna focus on just enjoying the ice cream, it's a pleasurable experience.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, right. So I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of want to know everybody's favorite ice cream flavor. If you
I
got to
know,
this
right?
point in the episode, please comment and let us know so that we can celebrate ice cream and the joy it brings. Frances, thank you so much for being here today and for being willing to share about like to be with like maybe reliving a hard moment in your life, and also being willing to share some wisdom for our listeners who may have either gone through something similar or maybe at some point will. I really appreciate the grace and the strength with which you shared that today. We'll link all the places for people to find you, including like specifically that YouTube video you mentioned that you just posted this past week about community. We'll get all
Yeah.
that to people. For anyone listening, please comment things that you took away from this episode that really resonated with you. Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. And yeah, you are not alone. You're not alone. We weren't designed to do it alone. So let's knock that off. Let's knock that off. Frances, thanks so much for being here. And
Thank
our
you, and
listeners.
thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, of course, anytime, anytime. And for our listeners, please stay tuned for another episode.